Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee, hosted by Kyrill, Lazarov, and Dario, Nouri, a platform where creatives and business professionals discuss industry topics, ideas, and share experiences. Today we welcome our guest Andrew Osborne. He is the founder of Minifridge Media, one of Toronto's top video production companies, and he's a freelance director whose work has played on national TV, in Cineplex Theatres, and at the TIFF Bell Lightbox. We hope you enjoy our discussion, so let us start.
Well, today we have another guest on our show. We have Andrew from Minifridge Media. Andrew is a video producer just like ourselves, and he actually got his start 5 years ago, just like we did. So let's just hand it off to Andrew.
That's great. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here over Zoom.
Yeah, it's definitely changing nowadays, right? Everything's just over Zoom.
Yeah, like a lot of meetings and calls, like what used to be done in person now has obviously switched over to this platform. So we've kind of mimicked this platform a little bit with the format of the show as well.
Yeah, I mean all the interviews are being done over Zoom, even for filmmakers. Like I just watched the new Charlie Kaufman movie last night, and then watched a bunch of his interviews today, and they were all over Zoom as well. Which is probably easier for him to just do it from his house instead of going into a million different studios.
Yeah. The only thing I found that's a little tricky is that with connection issues, sometimes you talk over each other.
Oh, yeah.
I almost want to just say, okay, let's do video, but then I'll call you on the phone. That way we'll have like a clear line.
Yeah. Just have a different means of recording. But
yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you kind of jumped into the industry?
Sure. Well, lifelong filmmaker and film fanatic, and always wanted to be a writer, director, and editor. I'm good at editing as well. And I, studied film at Queen's University in Kingston. I made a ton of short films and skits while I was there. My first job in the industry was as an assistant editor at a place called Saints Editorial, where I was sort of behind the scenes preparing the footage on a bunch of huge TV commercials and rubbed shoulders with a bunch of ad agency people and learned how the advertising business worked. And then I got let go from that job at the end of 2015. And I mean, I can tell you the whole story, but I started my own company about a month and a half after that because I met somebody who had their own company and they needed a video. And I didn't even think it was a possible thing to do, but they sort of convinced me that I should do funny videos for tech companies, funny explainer videos. That's actually how it started. And the model was Sandwich Video in San Francisco, which he was a big fan of. He turned me on to them, and he said, you could do this, you could be this guy for people in Toronto, because he thought I was funny. I was doing a skit channel at the time, that's how I met him. And then it just sort of evolved into, it's Minifridge Media, and it's not just funny tech explainer videos. It's any kind of video that any business needs. It could be a corporate interview video, but more likely, or what's more fun for me is to do funny commercials, promotional videos, that sort of thing. But I've done so many different types of videos, everything from logo reveals to more recently Zoom. We just did a Zoom skit where it was 4 people talking to each other over Zoom. That's a whole other discussion about how COVID's changed everything. But yeah, any kind of video people need, we can do it. Minifridge Media.
It's interesting you mentioned you were a lifelong film lover and you wanted to get into filmmaking, right? But now you're doing corporate filmmaking in a way. How do you... We kind of had the same thing as well, right? We got into it to try to get into the film industry, right?
Yeah.
Like that was our original goal. But then as time went on, we found that we feel a bit more grounded and more comfortable in the corporate filmmaking world, but we do kind of want to dive into that at some point, right?
It happens to a lot of people who start in this industry. Yeah. I'm sure you've noticed this as well. Anyone who decides to pick up a camera, no one's ever really starting off thinking, with this camera, I'm going to make corporate promotional videos and advertisements. That's never the first thing that people typically lean towards. They want to be either a director, cinematographer, filmmaker, but they definitely kind of tend to transition in that direction because like many of us realize that's where the money is, at least in the beginning, right?
Yes. Yeah, and listen, I'm still a young man. I got my whole life ahead of me. I'm going to be doing actual movies, and I do look at this as a stepping stone or whatever it is. a job, an experience for my 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, now into my late 20s, spending that time that a lot of other people spend working at some company, I don't know, working their way up, whatever they're doing. I've got my own thing, and I've spent the time writing, directing, editing, producing commercials and videos and learning about that, but also spent a lot of time, there's a lot of rejection and waiting and being a self-starter and making things happen for yourself that I think is going to come in handy later on when I do try to pursue the actual Hollywood filmmaking thing. So I haven't resigned myself to this as like, this is my career now, because I do think I have more to offer than in just this space, but it's a great thing. It's the freedom of being your own boss and making your own decisions and controlling your destiny is a great, beautiful thing. And I've gotten a ton of practice, which I think I'll apply to my filmmaking career. But this is my filmmaking career too. I'm not going to say like when it starts or anything like that. It has started. But to answer to your point, it is about money, and making money is the greatest reason to be in advertising as a filmmaker, I think.
It helps you get your start and just kind of build that support that you need, because everybody needs needs that financial backing, going into filmmaking, typically people realize, okay, I'm going to go for broke if I go in this industry.
Well, there's two ways of going about it. You
Yeah.
either work up the ladder and then hopefully in 20 years you end up, maybe you finally get that directing job you've always wanted, right? But it seems like it's, from what I've seen and who we've talked to, they seem to be two very separate worlds, right? And it seems like the only way you can really transition into it from maybe like our industry would be to, again, create some type of short or feature and then submit it to these independent film festivals. That seems to be like one of the only ways to get in, because the other route is, again, working up that ladder, and who knows how long that'll take. That might take maybe 20 years.
I don't believe in that. I don't believe in working up the ladder. Like, you're going to start as a PA and then eventually you'll be directing a movie at some point if you just wait long enough. I mean, that never works. That's never worked. Because once you learn about what's on a film set, it's PA, you move up to production manager or something like that. More likely you'll end up as a producer. Director, you could have some 22-year-old be the director, and everyone else working on it is 45, and they've been waiting their whole lives to be the director. And it's just like, why does this kid get to do it? And the answer is that I don't know why that kid got that job, but in general, to be a director, you really just have to do it and show somebody that you did this thing, and then hopefully they'll give you the opportunity to do that. But it's like being a writer or something. It's like you got to be good at it, and you just have to do it, and nobody's going to let you do it or give you a chance. And I'm going to speak in cliches, but I think that's true. So I when I was faced with the okay, I got let go from my job as an assistant editor, that path would have taken me to be an editor of commercials. That's the path that I was on. I could have jumped back on that path and gotten another job somewhere. But I just thought this would be a faster way to get to what I want by immediately starting and building up my directing reel and showing people what I could do. I felt like I had so much more to offer than I was offering people at that job as an assistant editor. I really felt like I was really meant for the big leagues right away. And it was a blessing to get let go and have that opportunity to start directing right away.
I wonder if it also has to do with the fact that, like us three, we do have an entrepreneur type of mindset, and like we need to be our own bosses and trying to work up the ladder. It didn't work at an agency. It's certainly not going to work through a union, right? So maybe it's something within us that we just can't do it. But you did mention something else which was interesting, was that you thought you were ready for the big leagues right away, and that you just wanted to build that portfolio. That's one of the reasons why Kyrill and I partnered up. We wanted to be able to achieve our goals that much faster by kind of boosting each other to that spot, and we kind of are in the process of doing that too, right?
Yeah. And like, you being by yourself, how have you grown your business to what it is today? Like Dario and I know how it is, because we have a leg to stand on at times. If one of us is struggling with one thing, the other one is able to help out, and vice versa. Whereas with you, it's all you basically, right? How do you push yourself day by day, month by month, year by year?
It's so lonely. It's terrible. No, it is. I didn't know anybody who I could have been a partner with at the time where I was like, you and me should go into business together. I don't even know if it would have worked because it took me a while to get to the point where I could make a living doing it. And that's me keeping all the money, not splitting it 50-50 with somebody else. I didn't have to navigate that because it would have taken me... Well, it's an interesting point. You said you can go twice as fast, because I was thinking it would have taken me twice as long to get to the point where two people have good salaries off this rather than one person. And running it is difficult, and it's not the thing that I enjoy as much. I was a salesman before I was the assistant editor. That my first job, but that was only a summer job. I was a door-to-door and also phone. I made phone calls. I was a salesman for this construction software company, and I was a telefundraiser all through university. I was the best telefundraiser at the university. I raised the most amount of money, at least in my last year there. So I had these sales skills, and I'm pretty good at talking to people, I guess. But I had to learn a lot of that stuff too. And same with the branding. I think the branding and the name and the tagline and how the website looks. Which I actually designed the website. I think just having really great taste is what helped me, because I was able to reject a lot of things and say that's not going to work. That name sucks. That tagline sucks. This website design sucks. So I was able to narrow it down into, okay, I like these fonts. I like the way this looks. This is good. And I was able to use the sales experience of cold calling to create a huge list of companies in Toronto that I thought might need a video and cold call them and just ask them if they needed a video. And that's what led to the first 6, 7, 8, 20 videos, whatever. And then that kept it moving with word of mouth and whatnot. So it is really lonely and hard. I live with my girlfriend. That helps. I have a lot of friends. I think having friends helps because I at least can talk to people and not feel so lonely. But yeah, it sucks. And I sometimes I wish I partnered up with somebody like you guys did, because at least you guys know you're in it together and you have each other's backs, and it's a beautiful thing. I kind of wish I did that.
It's honestly a matter of opportunity. It just kind of worked out the way it was, the way it did. And, we've just kind of made it happen since then.
But we've actually been told that at the beginning when we first started, we had a lot of people tell us, oh, you know what?
Business partnerships don't work.
Yeah, especially if you guys are friends, don't do it. And, from what we've seen, it doesn't work for the most part. Luckily, we've been able to make it work.
It has its ups and downs. Don't get us wrong.
Like, after 5, I don't want to see his face ever again, especially since Monday.
Yeah, do you guys hang out after work?
Not as often as we used to. We used to do it a lot more.
It's COVID right now. There's only so much hanging out you can do right now.
Do you think our friendship has changed a little bit ever since we became partners?
It definitely has. I think we kind of I feel like with anyone, if you're friends and then you're trying to work in a business, you spend time together, to hang out, and enjoy each other's company. But when we're working, it's kind of like those things kind of overlap a little bit, and it's almost as if, okay, I've hung out with my friend, but worked with him all day. It's time to go and spend time again with the girlfriend as well. You gotta balance out some time.
Yeah.
How do you guys divvy things up? Like who's good at what? How do you know who does what?
At this point, we're really at this. Well, I mean, at this stage, we're really splitting everything 50-50. So Kyrill and I will both take on producing responsibilities, directing responsibilities. Although, you know what? When we're shooting together, if Kyrill's going to be the DP, that allows me time to produce and direct a bit more. Yeah. Because, again, when you're being the cinematographer, it's hard to focus on also directing it and producing it, right? Yeah. So while he focuses on that, that's when I'll take care of a lot of the producing and the directing. And I feel like those roles kind of work really well.
A lot of the time when we're shooting on that aspect, but at the same time, like, we both produce a lot of the projects. So Dario's handling several accounts with different clients, and he's taking care of that aspect, whereas I'm taking care of a few other clients as well. It's kind of like having double the manpower and being able to take on more projects as a result. Because like you do, you reach out to cinematographers, audio operators, crew, to help realize your vision. In our case, we basically have double the manpower to do that because we both go out and take care of those accounts separately at times. But also if there is the opportunity where we can work together, we do that as well.
Yeah, and recently, as of this year, especially this time period now, we are taking more of a managerial role. So Kyrill and I are just we're transitioning to just strictly produce and direct the projects.
Yeah.
And then just outsourcing a lot of the cinematography, extra shooters, audio ops, you name it. We're just outsourcing that stuff, especially on the editing end. We're really outsourcing that because we're really focusing on just growing the business this year. Like Kyrill and I are focusing a lot on strategy right now, and we don't have time to sit down and edit for a week, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. I thought maybe you'd reel things in during COVID because I found that I have to things I would have outsourced edit, like I would have outsourced this editing job. Now I'm doing it because I can't afford to outsource it anymore because we're not as busy, so I don't have to delegate as many tasks.
Of course. In that case, yeah, like definitely during COVID, a lot of the if there is the time for us to do it, whether it's COVID or not, if there's the time for Dario and I to do it, we will do it. But
now it's different because
it's a little different now. Yeah.
Yeah, like we're in the midst of doing some heavy sales in this coming month and as well as into October, and it's just we're focused. Like I find us working earlier and earlier every day. Like we used to start at 10 and we'd be done by 5. Now we're starting as early as 9, and I find 8 a.m. and I find myself like, sure, I'll take a break at 5, but I find myself going back to work at 7 to like 9 at least, you know?
You get burnt out if you try to do it all. And I'm sure you might have experienced the same thing. Did you ever experience something like that, like burning out early on?
Yeah, well, I'm with you guys on the later start because that's one of the great things about being your own boss, because I really am a night person and I get a lot of things done at night. And society judges people who get up late, who start their day at 10 or 11. But if you're working until 2 in the morning, it's like the same, if not, you're getting more work done. You're just doing it when everyone else is relaxing or sleeping. So, but I find obviously I'm busiest when I have a lot of projects going on. If I've got 4 or 5, 3 or 4, whatever it is, shoots in a month, and I'm managing all those different projects, and I'm also in the midst of editing some, that's when I'm working all the time. And then summers are a little slower, and obviously COVID's been slower, so I haven't had to deal with burnout. I've actually been more like hungry for things to do, and I've been working on not an exit strategy, but sort of like working on my screenwriting a lot more, because I think that, like you guys said, the ticket to getting out of advertising and into filmmaking where people actually want to watch it is hopefully writing a great script or making a great short film. So I've been working on that stuff more. So I'm always busy, but it's just a matter of if it's personal and business or just all business.
There's always work. You know, the crazy thing that I've learned about this industry is no matter what, you never don't have work. Even
just
during COVID.
It's just a matter of finding the work.
Well, there's the finding of the work, but it's also, as you said, there's so many opportunities for passion projects and things you want to do on the side that even if, say, there's some small things that, or like there's some corporate projects or client work that you don't have a lot of at the moment, there's business development that you need to still be doing constantly. And at the same time, you also want to fill up that time with, as you mentioned, passion projects. That's the time to get your portfolio work done and, hopefully even learn some new skills at times. There's always something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have your own business, there's always something to do, for sure. And I did a speech at a entrepreneurs conference thing where I just said that it's just a never-ending, or starting your own business is just a never-ending pile of work that just every time you finish one thing, the stack just keeps getting higher. But if you break it down into just getting one thing done at a time, it seems more manageable. But I agree with you. Branding and reaching out to people, biz dev stuff, always can be working on that, making it better. I've created so many decks in this past few months that nobody's even seen yet, but I just have them in case for when they come up, I'm going to have them ready.
We're doing the same thing, and I feel like now that we're not exactly out of COVID, but the sky's a little bluer.
A little bit.
I noticed this change with us. We're really hungry now. We're putting a lot more work and effort into trying to grow the company compared to before. Even the past couple of years, it seems like these last 2 months, it's been like we're hungry. I can like sense it. and I'm noticing a lot of changes too. So it's been really good for us.
We noticed that COVID forced us to stop and reflect on the business and kind of almost tear it down and build it back up again, and as you mentioned, work piles up constantly, and sometimes you don't even get to do some business development because of all the client work that is coming your way at the time, or all the shoots that you're doing. I mean, who would have weeks on end to think about business and strategy in the future when you have XYZ number of clients who are calling you daily asking you, okay, can you get this project done by this day, then this day? There's a lot of work that needs to get done. Do you feel like since COVID, you've been able to have the time to kind of think a little bit more about what you want to do in the future?
Yeah, and it is partly I'm thinking about what I want the business to be, because I think I'll still be doing it for a while still. And one of those things was I wanted to partner with more ad agencies, because I realized that pretty much all the clients that I had during COVID were ad agencies feeding me work from their clients, rather than, because ad agencies have a whole plan and a schedule for what they want to do with your marketing dollars, and just because COVID happened doesn't mean that all stops necessarily. Whereas if you're doing it direct for client, they might just have, their plan is just to completely pull the plug on things, which is what happened to me for a lot of my projects. But yeah, reflecting on trying to get more serious about figuring out how to transition into an actual filmmaking Hollywood career, and doing more screenwriting than I've ever done, and doing more even just like ideation, coming up with movie pitches, movie concepts, movie treatments. I wrote like 10, 15 treatments of movies that I don't know if I'm going to write the script for, but I just wrote the story of the movie out and all the characters. You know what a treatment is. And it's just to see, and pitching my friends all the time. Every time I see my friends, I say, oh, I got a movie idea. What do you think of this? Get their reaction, hone it. So getting a lot more serious about that, because I don't, I want to do that ultimately with my life. And I think when you're making money and having success in advertising, you kind of forget about your other dreams, what you so-called really want to be doing. And it's easy to just forget because you're so busy with what you're actually doing. And so everything stopping really gave me the time to sort of snap out of it and say, okay, what do I really want to do here, and work on it.
Yeah, it's funny you keep coming back to transitioning into the film industry, because when Kyrill and I first started this, again, like we were thinking of getting into it. We said to ourselves, we're gonna use this as a jumping board to get into the film industry, and I think we completely forgot about that. I think I only remembered that in the first episode or second episode where Kyrill made a comment about how that was our initial plan. And I was like, oh, I completely forgot about that. That was like exactly what we were going to do. And that's somehow just got lost along the way. But it's good to see that like that's still at the forefront of your goals, right? Because we've been in business roughly the same amount of time. We started in 2015.
Well, 2015 is where we really pushed it.
Yeah.
So we've pretty much been in the same in the industry for the same amount of time. And as you mentioned, like we've kind of forgotten that that's what we were originally wanting to do. But I think we also evolved in terms of some of the passions. Like I originally wanted to go into the industry to be a cinematographer, and while I am still very passionate about cinematography, I feel like there's other opportunities that I want to explore more, like for example documentary filmmaking and directing featured documentaries. That's something I really want to explore. So I feel like people's goals evolve all the time, especially when experience comes into play. And if you went into filmmaking back then versus you kind of trying to figuring out how to get into it now, you're probably going to be bringing something completely new to the table that you didn't even think you had before, right? In terms of experience, like what are some of the skills you've learned creating content for clients too, right?
Yeah, and I don't even know what that would have looked like. I did apply to a ton of jobs when I first got out of school, and a lot of them were at film production companies in Toronto. I wasn't about to move to LA and do that because I had to stay with my parents after school and live with them for a few years while I couldn't afford to do that. Also, there's all this stuff about the visas and whatever that I'm sure I'm going to have to deal with at some point. Yeah, and it's a good question. I mean, I applied to some production companies. One of them was doing this HBO show called Sensitive Skin at the time, and I actually watched the entire series. It was with Kim Cattrall, set in Toronto. It was actually pretty good, but I watched the whole series before the interview just so if it came up, I'd know everything about it, and it never came up. And I ended up getting the job at the advertising place rather than the film place. But I do think that I did jump into filmmaking more than if I had kept a job anywhere. I think what I'm experiencing now is much more similar to the director, writer's life than having a job at an office would, even if the office makes films or TV shows. Because it's a life of creating your own opportunities, facing a lot of rejection, all the responsibilities on you, creating the ideas and bringing them to life. And I've never forgotten about I can't forget about the filmmaking dream. It's like it's literally my entire life. I mean, if it doesn't end up happening, my life is over, because I've put so much emotional stakes into it. It actually scares me to think that if it doesn't happen, what would happen. So, but I try not to think about that and just work towards making it happen. And I think all the experiences I've had are gonna help, definitely.
When I was mentioning about evolving your goals, it's kind of like you're obviously going to still go into filmmaking, but what I'm talking about is also how you might want to do different types of filmmaking versus other ones, right? Like I thought I wanted to do feature film cinematography. Mine kind of evolved into more documentary directing, and potentially even sports documentaries. So like I feel like things change over the years, but it varies for everyone.
Well, I can see how you go from a corporate video job to a documentary job, because they are like little mini documentaries a lot of the time. You show up, you film interviews, you film B-roll, and then you cut it together the way you want to cut it together rather than like according to a direct script. So I can see how that your experience would lead you to want to get more into documentaries. And maybe you have been watching more documentaries. I think it's a lot about what you are into, what you watch. Maybe you got really into documentaries and you've been inspired. I don't know.
It's interesting that you bring up again this need to create art, through your scripts and potentially through your features and whatnot. Because we had a guest on previously, we had Yang from SDE, and this is something he brought up as well. Yang owns one of like the biggest wedding video companies in the city, right? And he also mentioned this kind of metaphysical question of, at the end of the day, like, what are you really creating? And that's something that he was struggling with his work, right? And it seems like it's something that probably all of us struggle with, because at the end of the day, ads, they could be cool, they could make you feel emotional, but you don't remember an ad from 6 months ago, let alone one from 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You might remember a radio jingle, but that's about it, right?
Yeah.
And it seems that because of that, we're trying to, it's almost like a lot of filmmakers nowadays that are in the ad world, they're trying to create filmmaking, they're trying to create ads that are almost like films. That's a lot of ads nowadays look like they would be short films, right? It's almost like the filmmakers behind these ads are trying to like show their creativity and their passion for films, and it's showing it through the ads. But at the end of the day, it is still an ad, right?
Yeah, at its very core.
So you mentioned something that was interesting. You said that you want to get more ad agency clients, right? And this is interesting because a lot of the other production companies I've talked to, they're actually transitioning a bit away from that, or they're kind of hedging their bets by working with more direct to clients, right? So it's interesting that you're going the other way compared to them.
Well, maybe they know something I don't, or maybe they've had experiences and have been burned or whatever. I don't know, because for me, that's where the money is, that's where the clients are. And also the whole industry is people just knowing each other, and this guy, I know that guy, oh, we go out for beers all the time, I walk the dog, whatever. It's always been like that. It was like that when I was at Saints, and if I could do anything differently, I would I don't know, try to be more one of those people who is. I'm very sociable, but I didn't make that many efforts to like really keep in touch with my connections when I left Saints, because I was kind of embarrassed that I had been let go, even though nobody would have cared. And I think it's where, like, since COVID, I've gotten all these jobs from, not all of them, but some, and they've been the biggest name clients I've worked with yet in terms of the companies. Like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to name them, but you've definitely heard of all of them. Whereas before I'm doing, direct to client, I'm doing companies that people haven't really heard of. So it raises the profile of work. And usually the best part about it is you go, what's the budget? And they go, this is the budget. Instead of going, what's the budget? Oh, I don't know. I've never done this type of thing before. What do you usually charge? Oh, okay. Well, it's better if they just go, it's $50,000. It's this much. It's whatever. And you're like, great, done. Let's do it.
It's a lot simpler. It's less haggling or discussion on the small details in the beginning, and then you can just get straight to the pre-production. And you're absolutely right. Network is everything now. And I feel like your portfolio and your career a lot of the time is reflected by the people that you know and you meet along the way, and that is how a lot of the work you do also kind of gets shaped by your network. What is like something that you've kind of done to differentiate yourself from a lot of other people that you kind of really push forward with a lot of your network?
Oh, like, you mean how have I done networking differently than other people?
No. More so
the business. Like,
yeah.
What makes Minifridge and you different compared to a lot of other people?
Well, I don't know what it's like to work with other companies, and I wish I could be a client and like just try a bunch of them out and see what it's like. The idea for Minifridge was me coming from the commercial world, Googling corporate video companies, Toronto, or whatever, promotional video production companies, let's call it, and looking at the companies that were in the space and thinking this does not feel like 2016. This does not feel modern. This is still cheesy and old, and I could do so much better than all of this. It really was from a place of ego, thinking I could just do so much better than this, and that was having never directed a commercial before. And I just had this confidence, cockiness, belief that I could, whatever you want to call it, that I could do a better job. And I was really young. I'm trying to think of the interpersonal relationships. If I could offer, I think I'm better now at offering people that seamless sort of experience and a good time, and people like to hang out with me and talk to me, I think. So they enjoy the experience of working with me. I'm not awkward or weird when I talk to people on the phone. I know how to like get through a meeting and not embarrass myself or anybody else. And maybe other people in filmmaking don't have those skills. It does attract a certain type of introverted, shy person, and I am an introvert at heart, and I have those qualities, but I also can be an extrovert and outgoing, and so it's a mix of, I think the videos are better, and I think it's probably more fun.
Do you think your sales background kind of played a role in giving you those necessary skills to make you a little bit more outgoing and a little less introverted? Like, that's kind of what happened with us as well, because we were also, Dario and I both worked at different banks as tellers. So I feel like we had a little bit of that sales skill there as well. And over the years, although we started out being introverts like you, we kind of expanded and we're a lot more extroverted as a result.
But I feel like the reason we're extroverted, again, is because we've shot a lot of weddings, and in the wedding scene, you got to break the ice with so many people. You have no idea. I mean, like, you go to the groom's house, you got him, his friends, his family, and then you go to the bride's house, you got her bridesmaids, her family, and you got to be, happy. You got to be excited. You got to be able to get them excited and break the ice super quick. So I feel like that's really what got us out of our shells.
Yeah. Did you find it was the same with you with your sales background?
That's a good point about the breaking the ice, because that's me, but doing corporate style interviews with people where they have to talk on camera and they're really nervous and you have to be funny and make them feel relaxed. In the sales background, I wasn't like that good at it or anything, and I was really young. I was like 22 when I had my last like official sales job before all this, which is like pretty much a child. And I was, apart from like getting over the fear of making phone calls to people, in front of other people, because there was a bunch of people in the office, and I was calling people all day with the same, like, script. Can we meet? This is what we do, da da da. That was scary, and calling people scary, but I got over that fear. And I think it just comes from, like, life experience. The more, like, the older you get a little more confident with yourself, who you are. You've had many more social interactions. Social interactions are by nature, like, pretty awkward until you really work on skills to make them less awkward and more natural and fun. And talking to so many people, because for every client I've met with like 5 or 10 who it didn't end up happening for whatever reason, but I still did the whole dance with them and called them. I mean, how many times a week? Less now, but when am I talking to a complete stranger who's reached out to me saying, I want a video? You have to break the ice with every single one of those people. You can't just go straight into business. You have to warm them up. You have to do some small talk. And these are people across every age and gender and ethnicity and location, and you never don't know anything about them, and you have a call set up with them, and you gotta, like, make it fun right away, and make it not be weird too, because some people are too salesy and too, like, oh yeah, making awkward, just like, how the hell are you? Beautiful day, da da da. It's like, that's too much. So it's like, you gotta find a balance, and it takes years of screwing up, really, and bad experiences and mistakes to get to this point where I still think I got so much further to go. I can be so much better at it, because if I was really good at it, I'd get every job that I go for.
Yeah, you just mentioned it takes a lot of years to figure it out. You've been in business roughly as long as we have. What are some mistakes that you've made?
Oh man, I've said the wrong thing. I've done, sometimes you get someone asks you to do a pitch or, like, come up with ideas, and I'm so excited to start that I don't even fully read what they're asking for until I've already worked so hard on the idea, and then I go back and go, oh, that's not what they wanted. Oh crap, so that happens. It's funny. It's hard to call it a mistake if it's just something that you forgot to do, but they didn't notice that you forgot to do it. But ultimately, subconsciously, they notice. Like, lately, and one of the things I've implemented in COVID is a whole system of a whole, like, Google Drive link where everything from the job is there. The script, the storyboard, the treatment, the casting options, the location options, and it's all labeled and organized. And I'm going to send it as a link in all my emails, so anytime someone gets an email from me, they can just catch themselves up on the project. That's something that I haven't done before. And did anyone notice that I wasn't doing it? No, because they didn't know to expect that, because they'd never done this before. But if it had been there all these years, would it have been a better experience for them? And would they have had an easier time and not had to search their emails to find certain things that I'd sent them weeks ago, and getting frustrated with me without even realizing it because they didn't know there was a better way? You know what I mean? It's like, it's not really a mistake. It's a mistake. It's just like, I wish I knew to do that.
You learn things along the way. If you miss something, or you make a mistake, or someone makes a mistake, you learn from it as it goes. And you actually mentioned how you created a solution that people didn't even know they needed, especially when it comes to client management. Because I think we've all been there, where a client has sent you something in a long email chain of 50 other people that gets lost at times, and it just became a lot easier. Whatever assets, briefs, and files were needed, you can just keep it all in one place. And keeping it at the end of every email for that particular client, you definitely solved the problem that they didn't even know they had at the time. So it just goes to show how mistakes you can learn from, and you shouldn't be afraid of them happening at times.
Yeah, one thing I like to do is, when we're creating our briefs, I like to reword their project description and needs in the brief, just so as I'm going through it, I'm also not going over anything that I might forget about, So it's like everything that's in their document is in the brief, and I've reworded it just so I know.
Totally. And that totally helps. Basically, writing down everything they say, or even better yet, recording it and then typing it up later, and then putting every single thing they said, giving it back to them in their brief. they think you're reading their mind, but really you're just paying attention. And then you can get into I don't know if you guys know Chris Voss, the negotiator guy. He wrote a book about just stuff like mirroring techniques and the power of no and all these like negotiation techniques that really help. So you just come across these things as you're living, and it gives you ideas for how you could be doing things better. I think it's just good to watch widely, read widely, be open to everything, and you're going to get ideas for and listen to people, talk to people, and you'll get business ideas on how to improve your business. And I don't think mistakes are awesome. Let's all make lots of mistakes. That's become the cliche thing to say, but it's true.
So that was one mistake. But what about I guess wording it as a mistake maybe was the wrong thing, but what would you do differently if you could go back 5 years? Like, how would you start your business differently?
Yeah, well, it'd be great to take everything I have now and just start in terms of like all the decks that I've built, the pitch decks that I've built, but then again, I wouldn't have all the clients to create that to begin with. Like the website, starting again.
Like has everything you've done, would you just not change anything if you could go back? Or if you had the opportunity, would you do some things differently? Maybe one or two things.
I probably would have like gotten a co-working space a little sooner than I did. I worked from home for a little too long, and I'm really missing it now because I am stuck at home. And I just found out my co-working space is still not going to open up for another little while. I thought I was going to be back today. I probably would have gone into an office more sooner than I did, because it is, in terms of loneliness, and like, it just feels better to be at a place with a bunch of other entrepreneurs and professionals, even if you're not talking to them all the time, and just leave your house and get out there every day. And having a downtown address as your company's address is really helpful, because I had it as my like parents' house for a while, then I had it as my house, which was still downtown, but it was like a residential address, stuff like that. But there's a million like lessons that you couldn't learn them unless you did them. So what's the point of thinking about going back? I could start a new video production company from scratch right now, but then I'd have to build up the whole reel again and a whole new list of clients, and might as well just stick with what I already have.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned a co-working space or an office, because we had Yang on for the last episode, and he also mentioned how getting an office really set him on a course where he couldn't really change things. Like, he was now locked into a 3-year lease, and that was that. He had to focus on that full time. And I feel like that's something we've been wanting to do for a while. Obviously, COVID has changed our plans, but if anything, it's made it easier for us in the coming future, because now the leases are very cheap,
Every situation is different. For some people, they find that having a co-working space is very productive for them. For some, it doesn't necessarily work. So every situation is different. Like, for example, we had an office early on in the business as well. We got like this one small office downtown that we would occasionally use, but none of our editing suites were there. It was just a place to kind of simply go to. It's an address for the business, and we can meet our clients there. But very quickly, we learned after about almost a year, all of our clients wanted us to meet them at their offices, right?
That make sense?
That's exactly right.
So we realized that it didn't work out for us at the time, and we didn't need the space. So we got rid of it. We continued to be working from our own homes, and then, obviously renting out spaces and studios whenever needed. But, now it's starting to get to the point where we realize, okay, we can see that in the next 6 months or so, it might be a good idea to get that space again. So needs change constantly, and everyone's situation is different. And like you mentioned in your case, having that energy, the lifestyle of people around you, it really helped you. Whereas now you're kind of adjusting back to working from home, and it's not as easy as it was before.
The reason to get an office, as if you have a video production company, is because you want to convince people that you're a bigger company, that you can take on bigger projects, that you're more trustworthy if Nissan comes calling, or some big agency and wants to give you a huge contract, because they're going to be looking at 5 different companies, and it's like it's just one more factor that might push you in that direction. We want to work with a company that has an office and a reception, and we can go there. We probably won't, but we could, and they have a whole staff, and that's great. But it's like those people were probably wiped out when COVID hit because it's so expensive, and it's so, to me, unnecessary, because you don't. I mean, I'll hire people on when there's a project. When we have projects, I hire them on to do the project. When the project's done, they leave. And you're literally charging your clients more so that you can pay for your office. You can charge them less because you have less operating expenses, and that should be way more attractive to people. But everyone's still in an old-fashioned mindset that you need a big office to truly have made it. And I think that this COVID thing has made everyone realize that that's bullshit.
Yeah, Kyrill and I actually had a discussion early on when we heard that a lot of companies weren't doing too well. We're like, well, why would you go get a huge office downtown? Like your overhead costs are so high, right? I mean, you could have gotten it maybe Midtown, and it would have cost you like half the price. You're still like pretty much in the core at that point, right? And I mean, again, how many clients really come to you? It's mostly you going to the client.
You should do the office for you, not for the client necessarily.
But you bring up another interesting point too, which is because of the pandemic, again, you don't really need an office. And then again, especially in our business, you don't really need that many employees. Like freelancers are more of our go-to sources, right? Like same with you hire a lot of freelancers. We do that too. I feel like if we were to hire employees, it would be maybe a full-time editor, but I think we would focus more on producers that can also shoot and direct.
Well, you'd want an account manager probably this is something I wish I had. So like, because it does make you seem more legit when you can pass someone off to an account manager, because nobody wants to think that you're doing everything, because people don't think that you could possibly be good at everything. I just happen to be good at everything. I can do, and I don't think I could have started this business if I wasn't able to do everything except for videography and cinematography, which I can hire other people to do. I believe in hiring other people to do what you can't do, but the main sources of income are the producing fees, the writing fees, the directing fees, and the editing fees, and then everything else is sort of all the other line items. So the fact that I can do those four for every video if need be, because when I get busier, I'll outsource some of those roles to other people. Like if you work with an agency, usually the script's already written, and a lot of the time you can get someone else to edit the video if it's not that important. They're all important, but if it's not, you can get a good editor to do the editing. So yeah, like I couldn't do this unless I was able to do all those roles, because I just don't think there's enough money to, like we said, support the whole office with the whole staff. And maybe I'm bitter that I don't have that, but I know that big clients won't go with people who don't have that. But it's like, how am I supposed? It's like a catch-22. How are you supposed to get the big office with the staff if the clients won't hire you for those huge budget jobs to begin with? And so then you're funding it yourself just to look cool and to show people that you're big. But if some sort of calamity happens, you're screwed. You're like so overexposed.
Yeah, I've actually heard two different viewpoints on this. I spoke to one company that said, they were still waiting on the government support for the rental coverage. They still haven't gotten that yet. And I spoke to another company that actually said, thanks to the government subsidies, they've been able to stay afloat really well, because they got their employees covered, and they also got their business, the rental covered, right? So it seems like it works for some, doesn't work for others. Who knows, right?
As we mentioned before, every situation is different for everyone, and you can see what works for other people and see what similarities or parallels there are to your situation. But at the end of the day, you always have to make the call yourself on what you can and can't do. So one thing you mentioned was how everyone kind of does a little bit of everything, especially in the beginning. And with the barriers to entry are so low now in the industry, What is something that you think a filmmaker needs in terms of a skill or element? Is it that you mentioned that you can do everything, or is there something else?
To start a company or just do an individual video?
To do a video, or even to start a business. Let's say to start a business, like a video production business. Like what do you need in terms of as a skill?
Yeah, you need so many different skills. It's crazy. I mean, you need to, like, especially at the beginning, because you really won't have the leeway to hire other people to do things for you. So you should be able to write the script for, any product that comes along or any service. You got to be able to write a script, or at least have an idea for a video for them. You can't expect them to have the idea for the video. It's got to be your idea. Then you got to be able to find the people to pull it off with you. Book the whole crew. Go to the set. Tell them all what to do. Direct it. Make it actually look professional and passable. Edit it. I mean, it's so many different things, and you want to inspire people and say anybody can do this. You just have to work hard and have a dream. But man, you got to do all these things well, and obviously you won't be able to do them as well when you start out, because you're going to learn and get better. But man, I still think there's a barrier to entry, because all this equipment won't make you good at any of these things. That's for damn sure. And if you're not good at those things, you should be an amazing salesman who can convince people that those things aren't important, or that you are going to get better at them, or whatever. And I've seen people who have companies who I personally think the videos are not good, but I know they're amazing salespeople who have convinced their clients that this is good stuff, and they're doing a good job, and the clients are happy, and they're still paying them because they're that good at whatever, personal relationships and selling, and presenting themselves as a really organized, successful person. So yeah, there's so many different things. What can you say?
Yeah, you definitely need to be able to balance a business mindset with a creative mindset,
which
and that
is
seems
so
to be
difficult.
It's very difficult. Like, I mean, with Kyrill and I, it's usually when we get into a business mindset, our creative mindset kind of decreases in a way. It's hard to balance both of them, because again, like, we almost have to have like our feet in two different ponds, right? Whereas like, if you're just focusing on one thing, if you're just a freelance shooter, you don't need to worry about the business side of things, aside from just getting your gigs. And once you've built that network, you're already going to be getting a lot of gigs based on the people you know, right? But if you have a business, you not only have to focus on growing that business, you also have to focus on remaining competitive. And one of the best ways to remain competitive is to create creative work, right? Again, like, at the end of the day, we are creating stories, and if you can't create a story, again, like, you better be a really good salesman, right?
Yeah.
But that's something we struggle with a lot. Like, how do you, being a one-man band, like, how do you balance the creative with the business?
That's a good question. And some people say that creativity comes from limitations and knowing, okay, I only have this much money, I only have a 1-day shoot, we're probably going to be able to afford a house and a couple actors, what can we do with that? So I think they are pretty intertwined, because the creativity comes out of whatever the job is. So, if it's a dog food company and they have 20 grand, you think you have a lot of options, but you kind of don't. You kind of have those parameters. And then great creativity can come out of that. Or like, we have to incorporate this line into the script. It's like, okay, that can change what you end up doing for the better sometimes. And yeah, it is a one-man band, but it's not, because I'm not, like, I picture a guy who's also filming, who's like, well, I literally picture a one-man band when you say that. But when I'm on set, I have like all these people around, and they know what they're doing, and I should change what I said earlier a little bit, because I think you can start a company and hire someone else to write your scripts, hire someone else to direct it, hire someone else to edit it, and hire someone else to produce the videos, and be like, I'm just the business guy, I sell these videos, they make them, I just think the path to being profitable is so much longer than, I'm saying how to make money when you actually can, get paid for all those jobs. And I also don't know why you'd want to do that, because I don't think this is like the most profitable. If you're just a businessman who just wants to be in some sort of business and you're going to hire someone else to do all the creative filmmaking stuff, go into like anything else.
Yeah. This is not the industry to scale sales, right?
Yeah, no, you can't sell a million of these things. They're like little, I say it's like being an artisan. It's like someone who sews something and like sells it on the side of the highway, and each one is like has love and hard work in each one. It's not like a mass produced scale, expand global offices thing at all. And maybe that's why it's creative. I don't know.
Yeah, everything we quote is always custom tailored to the particular client. I feel like that it's like that with everyone else in our industry, right? Like, cause again, everyone's needs are always different. They're not going to understand that, okay, that promo video you want to do, they don't know that it's going to be a half day. Sometimes it's a half day, sometimes it's a full day. Sometimes you need an audio operator, sometimes you don't need it. That's actually why when we tried to bring on a salesperson one time, it just didn't work, because he came from the wedding industry and his mindset was packages, right? Because in the wedding industry, they got bronze, silver, gold packages, right? And you just can't apply that same mindset to like corporate videos, right? It's completely different. Everything is custom tailored to the client.
That's a great point. You have to, it's true. So many times I've been on the phone with people and it's come down to how much is it going to cost? What can we lose? What can we gain? And I can't trust a salesman, an outside salesperson, to be able to do that. It has to be me really on the phone being like, well, this is what it's going to be. And if you have this much money, this is the kind of ideas we can do. So the creativity and the business all bleeds together for me, because at this point I can just tell you exactly like how much anything is going to cost and if we can do it for your budget or not based on what your vision is. And I have a trust problems in general. I mean, when I heard about you guys splitting up your company, that you both do the directing and both do the producing and all, I couldn't do that, because I it's also an ego thing, but I have to be like, everything here I did, and I don't trust other people to do. When you're directing, you have to trust other people because they're on your crew, but you're also you get to stand over their shoulder and tell them yes or no. You don't, is this good? No, fix it. It is. Is this good? Yes, it is. You don't let them go off and do it and then see what they come up with.
Yeah, I think it works with Kyrill and I, because again, we've known each other for so long. I think we've known each other for 8 years, and we've been working together for 6 years.
Yeah.
So at this point, we know exactly how the other person thinks.
We know how we think. We have a lot of parallels in terms of like our mindsets. We've been doing this now for so long. Obviously, as you mentioned, like in the beginning, there was issues where like, we were both so into the work that the other person was doing because we wanted to make sure that it was all good. But I guess over the years, as it's kind of gone on, as we've both gotten experience, we've seen each other grow, and we have developed the trust even further to the point where I know Dario can handle the work with this client. I know he can handle that call because he knows what to deliver to the client just as much as I do. And that actually also allowed us to kind of take some of the pressure off at times, because especially if you get an influx of work, which happens like every now and then, you can't do everything. As you mentioned, like you outsource a lot of the roles and responsibilities that you need on set to people who are better, right? Or at least can handle that, and you can trust them with it. And at times, as you mentioned, even the writing and the producing, sometimes if you're overworked, you hire out other people. Whereas in our situation, when we get a lot of work, we divvy it up, because then it just makes our work life a little bit easier. So I think it happens when you grow with the other person, you can develop that trust. In your case, if you were to now just like that get another business partner, there's no way you're going to be, as you mentioned, there's no way you're going to be able to just blindly trust them with everything.
No, I'd have to train them, and even then, I don't know. It'd have to be a certain type of person, and it would be a person in business. It wouldn't be another creative person, because then it would just defeat the whole purpose. I don't want to be the guy who's like, making the deals and then passing the work off to this other person who's going to actually make it happen. It would have to be someone who's like in business or like is very experienced in the agency world, knows how to quote videos, someone like that.
Yeah, and I think another thing too is that we're of a different mindset now. Like, yes, we're still creative, but our goals for the company are a lot bigger. I feel like because of COVID, the restructuring we've done, we're more focused on growing the business now versus being creatives in a way. Because I feel like before COVID, we're like, let's try to build a really cool portfolio, get a lot of cool projects, this and that. We never really focused on growing a business. Whereas now our mindsets are more like, okay, we need to grow this business. Let's try to test out these good shooters that we know. We've worked with them on projects alongside them, but now we got a project we want to do. Let's bring them on. Let's see if they're really good. If they're just as good as they are on set, when we're shooting with them, we'll keep feeding them work. So Kyrill and I can just focus on growing the business. So so
they go out and do the videos, and then
in a way, what we
stay in the office.
Well, what we want to do is, again, instead of us going out and being the DPs and directors and whatnot, like we're just gonna focus on the producing and the strategy. That's what we want to focus on going
at least
forward.
The core, at least that would be the core focus. Like, there's obviously going to be situations where we go out with the crew like you do to the shoots to make sure that everything is running smoothly, that things are happening, but at the same time, we want to, at least at this point in time, to focus on setting up the business so that it can start growing from now. Because if we just try to do what we were doing before, we would just be in the same boat as then it was a year ago.
Yeah, because then we're working for the company rather than like having the company work for us. So we're trying to set that in motion now, because long term we do want to get it to the point where we grow and then somehow develop a marketing arm, and then kind of have it so that we're kind of a marketing agency and kind of a video production company as well. Maybe add a photography arm in there as well. And then once that becomes fairly large, I'm thinking in the next 5 to 10 years, try to get investing to open up internationally. That's our long-term goal right now.
Well, that's great. It sounds like you guys are thinking more like business people and you're producers at heart. If that's you've tried everything, and now like you've tried the different jobs, and that's the job that you're leaning towards, and that's really cool. And I've thought about doing that too, and having a sort of Minifridge label of like, I'm not the director. I just hired someone I really trust to come do it and be the videographer too. And hey, wouldn't it be nice to lie back and just keep an eye on things and let the money flow in without you having to get so involved every single time and spend your time looking for new business. And I think in general, what the industry is going towards, I think it does make sense to have an office if you have a studio attached to the office with a white wall, whatever that's called, a white wall with, you can do backdrops on it and film products, basically, because that's what everyone wants now. They just want a product on a colorful background, with a hand drinking the soda or whatever it is. So if you can do that and just pump that out of your own studio, that makes sense to have an office, and that's something you can probably just set up and hang back and supervise without getting so involved. Because I've done so many shoots where I felt like I was the PA and the director, and I really was. I mean, I was the director. Everyone, defer to the director. What does the director want? But then when they all, I'm still at the end, like picking up chairs and moving the gear into the car with everybody else. And I don't want it to be like that forever, so I totally understand.
We have a really funny story actually. Kyrill and I were on a shoot. This is the time we had to clean the dishes.
Oh my god! This was in February.
Okay, yeah, this happened not that long ago. So we were at this shoot, and we rented out this
person's apartment.
Yeah, it was like not Airbnb, that other company we all use. But anyways,
it's like Set Scouter.
That's what it was. Yeah. So we rented out this place, and we shot there. We finished. The entire crew left. It was just Kyrill and I. We're just packing up the product to get out of there. And the owner comes back, right? And I remember she just...
Well, you weren't there for this because you actually were out in the car and I was inside. And she comes in through the front door because she got back a little early, and as she walked in, they had a kitchen, right? And obviously we used the kitchen for lunch, and we threw out most of the food.
But
and,
we used their plates and
there
the
was like a
forks,
couple
right?
plates. It wasn't that many. It was like maybe 4 plates and 4 forks. And as I'm packing up my last bag and I'm just about to leave, she looks into the sink and she's like, "So, are you guys gonna clean the dishes?"
Now, mind you, this thing had a cleaning fee included.
It was already
in the
included.
invoice.
It was already included, the cleaning fee. And she said, "Yeah, because if," and I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, we have a cleaning fee that we're paying." And she said, "Yeah, but yada yada. This I'd have to charge extra for so and so. Like the cleaning fee only covers vacuuming
for
and
4 plates. Okay, for 4 plates." And she hands him this like sponge that was so dead.
It was dirty.
It was dirty. I'm like, "You use this on your stuff?" So I remember, so we were cleaning. I came back. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Yeah, we got to clean
He walks in and I'm just cleaning the dishes.
See, I wouldn't even think that was weird if I was there. I'd be like, "Yep, you got to clean the dishes. What are you gonna do?"
But it's like,
You gotta take the garbage out with you.
But so yeah, like I was like, "Oh my God." So I went and I helped them out, and you know what? I barely use soap just cause I should not have to be cleaning dishes because I'm paying you a lot of money for this.
Because the cleaning fee was included, and and if we use like 3 or 4 dishes for lunch, like that should be included. Like if there was no cleaning fee, I'd understand that.
Yeah.
But we paid, what was the cleaning fee? Like $150.
Yeah.
For that.
So Kyrill and I are cleaning it, and we're quiet. Like we're quiet the whole time. After the shoot finishes and we say bye to the crew and everything, I just call him up and I was like, "That is the last time I'm touching a dish. Like I'm never doing that again in my life."
Has that ever happened to you? Something like that?
You're not too good for dishes. That's the thing.
It was just like
That's the
I
thing.
felt like that was the lowest point in our career where we were cleaning those dumb dishes up.
Well, because it just hit us.
I've done
right.
worse, man.
Oh, really? What is worse?
Well, every location I've been to, you clean it up when you're done. I mean, it's like, it comes down to this, like you feel like I get in this mindset when I'm actually on set of filming where I'm so grateful to be there and doing it that I actually sort of forget that I shouldn't be doing those certain things and shouldn't be cleaning up. And it's going to be amazing when as a director, you just show up and the trucks are already set up and they're ready for you. And when you're finished, you leave. Like, I don't want to watch people pack up gear ever again or have to wait another hour and a half where everyone packs up gear. But that's what it is. But I completely agree with you guys. You work until you don't have to be the last guy on set.
Yeah,
up.
I don't mind being the last guy on set, but
Yeah,
I do
which we
fantasize
were.
about not bringing the rock and roller cart, loading that thing up, packing it and then unpacking and then packing it up again. I do fantasize about never touching that thing again. That's like a long-term goal for me.
Yeah, but I mean, in that situation, it was kind of like one of those things where we didn't expect it. Like we cleaned up as much as we could, even like the place as we left it. Like we pretty much came. We left the place as it was.
It just felt demeaning. That's what it was.
It's just the way she communicated to us, right? It was not very like kind of
Well, she was this creepy lady, and like the way she said, I don't know, I just got like psychopathic vibes from her. And then I'm not supposed to be clean. I'm paying you $150. I'm not cleaning the dishes, okay?
Yeah.
Like
I'm gonna keep that in mind when I go to my. I'm shooting at a set scouter house in a couple weeks from now.
Yeah. I mean, if the interaction was a little bit more pleasant in terms of the way she mentioned it to us, then we would have been like, okay, that's not a problem, or vice versa, right? There would be like at least an understanding. But it was just like very hostile the way she communicated to us. But anyway, as you mentioned,
I hope you're listening, lady. I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
Send her the link to this.
Oh, definitely. We'll find that old that link. But anyways, we've talked a lot about business development, growth. Now let's kind of move on to the creativity. How do you tell an effective story?
I think an effective story is whatever makes you want to buy the product or try out the service. Not even when you finish watching it, but already in the first like 10, 15 seconds of it. And the great saying of advertising, I think, is, you don't need to fix the ad so much as you need to fix the product. Like sometimes people tell me product ideas or companies come to me saying they need a video, and I just know within hearing what the product is that the video is going to write itself. People are going to want to watch this video. people are going to want to buy this product because it solves a problem that either people know they had or they didn't know they had. And I think the whole industry is moving more towards a straightforward style of advertising rather than a emotional, cinematic style that we were talking about before. That style works more for an established brand that you already know about, and they just want to keep reminding you that they exist. But when you have a new product, which is a lot of types of videos that I do, you try to figure out what problem it solves and try to come up with a way to show how it solves that problem without the cheesy, infomercial style black and white photo of a woman washing dishes and like, oh, she broke the brush and oh, what am I gonna do? Not go in that direction, but come up with something that's gonna grab people's attention and go, oh, I have that problem. Because listen, we all have tons of problems. Every single person I know. You have emotional problems, physical problems, societal problems, convenience problems, and every year 15 things come out that make your life easier, and you buy them and you don't know what you did without them. But not every product has that. So that's why I think, fix the product, not the story. It shouldn't be so hard to figure out how to sell your thing if you're in business and you've gotten to this point that you're asking somebody to make a video for you. So start with that. That's what I would have to say.
Do you feel, because like Andrew's work is really good. Like the types of ads he makes are very comedic but effective, and that's why they're
memorable.
Good, right?
They're memorable.
They're memorable, but
okay.
they got a comedic twist to it, which is why
Nice.
they're good because you always remember them. Would you say creating more of that type of content, or would you say that maybe even that's changing? Like do you find your style needing to evolve, or kind of what you got going on is good?
Well, obviously it needs to evolve if, it's going to fly off the shelf and my phone won't stop ringing. Obviously, I can always get better. I think, though, funny is always better, and funny is going to keep it's going to keep being popular. I think emotional ads are way trickier gambit and most likely end off coming off as a bit cringe, and also people are very cynical, so if you see some emotional story and then at the end the MasterCard logo pops up, you're kind of like, well, screw you. So might as well admit that it's that. I think the problem is that I think the weirder the better in terms of humor. The weirder you can go is because I think a lot of people try to make funny ads, but they try to make them safe. And I've tried to write funny scripts for people, and then that are like weird, outside the box, would definitely be memorable. But then they don't exactly feel comfortable doing that or being that weird. So then you whittle it down into something that's a lot safer. And it's not as funny as when it started out.
How do you manage that process? Because again, you're starting out with something that you think is really good and it'll be really effective for the client, but then they keep telling you to change it, and like how do you get to the point where you're like, okay, like it's no longer worth doing this because you've changed it too much at this point, right?
Well, it's always worth doing it, I think. If they want to do it with you, I will do it if they're happy. And everybody in advertising knows this. If the client's happy, that's all that matters. So if they want to do that, I'm not going to be all precious about my weird joke that I wanted to go in. But I try to keep it funny, even if they. So they'll say, I don't like I like the general direction, but I don't like these jokes. You need to change this dialogue. But you get to replace it with. You get another chance. You think of another funny line that might work instead, and it's not like they. Once they start coming in. We have some ideas for some jokes we'd like you to tell. We have some ideas for the dialogue. We're going to write the final script. Then you just have to let go and say, all right, I mean, if it doesn't come out well, they're not going to blame you. And that's another thing you want to make sure doesn't happen. But if they're giving you the responsibility to come up with it and they trust you, that's when the funniest things happen. But then again, the clients can also be funny and have funny ideas too. It's all on a case-by-case basis. Some clients think they're really funny and they're not. But I want to use this interview on my LinkedIn, so I can't really go much further than that, guys.
Yeah, it's with every client it's different. There are situations where, you know, like certain clients are wanting you to do all the creative work. There are other ones that have a lot of creative input that they want to put in there. And at the end of the day, as long as you are able to make them happy and give them what they want, you're always going to be memorable and put in a good light with them. And a lot of the time that a lot of creatives don't even realize is that sometimes the input from the client can actually even make the product a little bit better than you expected, because they might see something that you don't. Because as creatives, we're always so attached to our work. We're so proud of the work that we've done. And, you know, we're happy how it's come out because it's come out just from us. That when other people are starting to tell you to change things, you try to block it out. But I remember we did a project 2 years ago where the initial cut, you know, we were really happy with it, but then the client said, I really like it. I like the direction, like you mentioned, but can we remove these few things and kind of restructure a few of the pieces? Because it was a much longer project piece. It was like about 10 to 15 minutes long. And then,
okay.
Yeah, it was like
a documentary.
Yeah, this was a short documentary we did a few years ago, and the first cut was about 17 minutes, and we knew it wasn't going to be that long by the end of it, but the client told us some of the things that we can remove and replace or even just kind of restructure, and that actually brought the time down to 12 minutes. And now, as a result, we're really happy with the final product because it helped make the story a little bit more, it helped kind of pop a little bit more just from their perspective. And sometimes, you know, you need that collaborative effort with clients, and they value that as well.
Yeah, and it's just another person's opinion and another person's ideas, and you know, and it's good to ask other people besides the client who, you know, maybe don't necessarily have the same power that they do to make the final decision what they think of your work. I love the story of Kanye West working on his album and at the studio and asking everybody who came through the room what they thought. And they'd give them they give him suggestions, and he'd go, "That's really not something I would ever say or do, but I love your suggestion anyway." And you hear that about studio. You know, you can compare commercial filmmaking to like Hollywood filmmaking in the fact that the studio is like the client, and they're hiring you to make this thing, but ultimately it's up to them, and they give you notes, and you have to listen to the notes. And people complain about the notes, but a lot of the time, from what I've heard, those notes are great and they actually improve the movie, because sometimes you're in a room with some really smart people who love movies and know what they're doing. And other times people just want to make changes so that they can get the credit for making a change or that they contributed something to the project. You never know, but it could definitely be a good thing. And I've gotten tons of great notes that have improved my work and made me look better.
We're kind of reaching the end now. I do want to get your thoughts on the future of the video production industry.
It's not going anywhere. It's a great industry. It's obviously going to be. It's going to keep going in the direction we've seen, where there's a lower barrier to entry and more people can get involved with it and start their own companies. Because really, as I was saying earlier, you can start a company with nothing. You can get the client to pay for the videographer. I do think you have to have the skills of like being able to write, direct, produce, and edit, and then hire everyone else. But if you can do that, you can start one of these things. And it's the more work is probably going to go away from the big ad agencies, or the big ad agencies are going to have to figure out ways to lower their costs, because the clients' budgets, I think, have shrunk, and they also want more straightforward, predictable content that literally tells people what it is, rather than really fancy, flowery, cinematic stuff that doesn't necessarily work but looks good on a reel. I think that's gonna happen, and hopefully, you know, well, everyone looks at video all the time now, so hopefully there'll be more and more demand for it. From an advertising perspective, and people are going to want to spend more and more money on it, as opposed to other things they could be spending money on, like radio or print or digital banners or whatever it is. the more people want videos, the better it is for us.
You kind of already touched upon this a little bit earlier in our discussion, but just to kind of summarize, like, what are some of the next steps for Minifridge? Like, we know your long-term goals, you want to go back into the filmmaking industry, but what are some potential next steps for Minifridge as a business specifically?
Work with huge name clients, make tons of money, blow you guys out of the water, basically destroy all my competition. No,
the challenge.
He's declaring war here.
Everything except for the last part. I think I think I have what it takes to make TV commercials. I really think that the only reason my portfolio is not better is because I've been just limited by budget. I haven't had the opportunity to work with a huge brand and have a significant amount of money to play with. Because I know that if you have an idea and you can, rent out a studio, build a set, hire great actors from ACTRA, have a great production crew, have money to do a few days of shooting instead of cramming it all into one day, editing, post, color grading. You just need money to do all these things and make it look great. And just got to be able to get someone to trust you with a bigger budget. And it's a catch-22 because they'll only trust you with a big budget if you've already done a big budget. And I've done a TV commercial and I've done videos that cost close to $100,000, but you want to get to where you can do a video that costs $500,000 or $1 million. And so my goal is to convince people that I'm ready for that I can do that. And once I convince one person and do it, I'm sure the rest, the ball will just keep rolling. And in order to do that, I have to keep making relationships with people and meeting people, because nothing will ever happen if you're just sitting around at home waiting for it to happen. And that's basically what I've learned with this whole journey of having my own business. It's a cliche, but you got to make it happen. And you got to talk to people and convince them that you can do it. And then when you get the opportunity, you can't screw it up.
Yeah, this industry is such a massive hustle, and you always have to be on your feet. And the second you kind of stop, that's when things don't really happen. And that's what we discovered very quickly from COVID, is that we stopped and everything else stopped as a result. But the second Dario and I started working on small, even passion projects on the side, or networking and making connections with people, the fact that we were making things happen, we were able to kind of attract that kind of energy and that kind of network that required more work. And now as a result, at least in beginning in August and now bleeding into September, like, the work is starting to come back, even though we're still technically all in a pandemic.
Yeah, and this is like work from previous clients. It's not exactly new work.
Yeah.
But yeah, even something as simple as like this whole show started with Kyrill, myself, and another friend of ours. We were trying to do like a funny comedy podcast, and then as we did a couple of weeks of that, we're like, why don't we just do this for the business?
Yeah, do it for the business.
And then this kind of grew from that. And then once we started doing this, it was like, well, we need to network with more people, right? Because like when you bring guests on the show, right? So started reaching out to more people, and that really got us in the groove of things. Because from there, we're like, okay, I'm used to now calling random people up, talking to them. I want to do this with businesses now, and that's what we're going to be doing at the end of this month and next. So it's been good. It's been good so far.
And it's led us to people like yourself, you know, and you share a lot of experiences and stories, and you bring a lot of value to people, especially the people that will be listening to this show. And, maybe someone can learn something from your journey and your experiences.
Yeah. And even just being connected to people like yourselves. Like, I love how determined you are to just like get what you want. Like that, it's like from our end here, I'm like, damn, like this guy really wants what he wants, right? Like he's just like, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna get that $500,000 commercial. I'm like, damn, like I like that. Like it kind of motivates us in a way,
Dream big, fellas, dream big. You definitely gotta. And I agree, and I think your podcast is a great idea, and it's the type of thing that I would have thought to maybe have done, or thinking of more ways you can market your own company and create content for it is excellent. And also talking to literally, the competition. Literally, I mean, you guys have a competing video production company to me, and maybe some of the other people who watch this will be people from competing video production companies, and they'll learn something from how I do things. I mean, and I'll learn from them, and we should all, be friends and know each other. We shouldn't all be in our own little dark worlds, just thinking about what is everyone else thinking. It's like, let's have an open discussion, and it's a positive, healthy thing. So good for you guys. I love the podcast.
Yeah, a lot of people I've reached out to, they're like, oh, it's cool to finally talk to someone else in the field, because it's always like you said, we're all in our own bubbles, right?
We're afraid to talk to other people, and the thing that we're also even potentially hoping that we can even get out of this is, this can actually push all of us to do better work, to make better connections, and even in a way sometimes help each other. We found that a lot of companies that we've collaborated with in the past, there have been times where they've been in a tight spot and they needed someone to come help them produce a commercial or a promotional video or something like that, and then we're able to come in and help them with that. And then vice versa. There have been situations where we weren't able to do a project and we needed help. And then because we made those connections, they've been able to come in and help do that. So we really hope that we can kind of create some kind of collaborative network with this that, other people can also benefit from.
Yeah, because I don't think we're really competing against each other, because
directly,
even indirectly, because you're going after clients that we're not going after, right? And again, the market is so huge. There are so many businesses out there that need video. It's an insane amount of businesses that need it, and especially now because of the pandemic, everyone realized the importance of it. So a lot more businesses want to do video, right? And if you look at all the other production companies that are around, they've all got different clients. I haven't seen one that has the same client. I mean, you do see them, but that's how you know they've worked with an agency.
Some similar ones, yeah.
Yeah, that's when you know they've worked with an agency. It's like, okay, you have that big client because, or maybe you're working with that specific department. But we're all essentially, there's enough food to go around. There's work basically, to go around. And we're all going after different clients at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to look at it. I think that, when I get a call from a client that says, I'm talking to you and 4 other agencies, and, may the best pitch win, you're kind of like, okay, well, is there enough work to go around? Because what if I get all these, or what if this other guy gets all these? What am I going to do? So I don't totally agree with you on that. I think there is a lot of competition, and obviously any company you see that has a bunch of videos, you could look at that and be like, I could have done those. Why didn't I do those? So, but it's a good mindset to have, and I hope it becomes more and more true. I think people will get out of their shells a little bit, hopefully, when we come on the other side of this thing, and there'll be more work to go around, because it's definitely contracted a little bit. So you got to work even harder to get those jobs and get those pitches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So before we kind of sign off here, is there anything you'd like to plug? Anything that's happening in the near future that you want to promote?
Well, I'm sort of revamping my Instagram, Minifridge Media, at Minifridge Media, and taking it a little more seriously as a promotional tool and keeping people updated. I might do I'll probably post this on there and do some webinars or something. I'm trying to just be more active on there. So if people follow me on Minifridge Media, that's great. And I'm going to have a bunch of shoots coming up where we'll be wearing masks and face shields, and I'll be posting about all that and what it's like to be shooting in a pandemic. So that'll be exciting.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us on the Creatives Grab Coffee podcast. As we mentioned before, your unique experiences and journey have really kind of added value to the discussion today. And we look forward to discussing more with you in the future.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun.
Yeah, likewise.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning into the Creatives Grab Coffee podcast.
You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Let us know if there are any topics you would like for us to cover in future episodes.
You can reach out to us at creativesgrabcoffee@gmail.com.